Today we're going to talk about the houses you do not want to buy. Okay, I'm being a little bit dramatic, but just houses that you might, or condos that you may want to think twice about buying in today's market. And I'm going to get started now. Hey everyone, my name's Jamey Prezzi. I'm a real estate agent in Miami-Dade and Broward counties. I work with my husband, Ognjen Prezzi, and our team. And today I'm going to talk to you as if you were one of our buyers, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about some properties you may want to think twice about buying. But first, before I get started, if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another update. We do put out new videos every single week. Also, use the link in our information box and download our free relocation guide. If you would like to schedule a seller or buyer strategy call with us, please feel free to use our contact information, and you can find all of that in the information box. Okay, let's get started. The first thing I want to talk about is functional obsolescence. Now, this is a real estate term that we learned many years ago, but I would like to read you the definition of what functional obsolescence means. Functional obsolescence refers to a reduction in a property's usefulness or value due to outdated features or design. These features may be inconvenient or undesirable compared to more modern standards or buyer's expectations, even if the property is still in good condition. One thing that I see a lot here that creates functional obsolescence, in my opinion, is when people try to turn a room into a bedroom when it's really not a bedroom. I see this a lot in condominiums where the developers intended for this room to be a den, but now people have bought the property, they've lived there for many years, and they use it as a bedroom. But then when they go to resell the property, they are still labeling it as a bedroom. Maybe it is now, maybe it's not. Typically, in order to be a bedroom, it really should have a window, I think, just in the buyer's perception, and also a closet. So sometimes these dens don't really come across as a bedroom, and it can affect the value of the property and also make it a little bit harder to sell. Another thing that we see as functional obsolescence is when there is maybe a limited number of bathrooms in a home, but the only way to access the guest bathroom is to walk through a bedroom. People often are not crazy about that, and it is something common that we do see in our area, especially in some of the older homes. So just always think about that when you're looking at these properties. If you can find a property that doesn't have that feature, or you can find a way to change it after you buy it, that would be something that I would definitely look into, because people typically don't like the idea of walking through a bedroom to get to a guest bathroom. Condominiums that have really bad views or not a lot of natural light. This you have to be really careful about, because those views go a long way, especially when it comes to if you need to resell the property down the road. We always advise our buyers to try and buy the best view in the building for your money, so that that view can go a long way in terms of resale value down the road. Views here are really important, and in fact, if you've ever watched any of our past videos, you'll hear me talk a lot about how a building can have many different markets just based on the view. For example, on West Avenue, you have a bay and city view in some buildings, and then you have a direct South Beach kind of partial ocean view for some other units. Always be really, really careful to have a look at the views so that you know what you're buying. Watch the pricing of the views in the building. Get the best bang for your buck in terms of view. And obviously do a little bit of research so you know what is going on around that view. There's no way 100% to always know that nothing is going to block the view. We live in a city. Things get changed all the time. New buildings can come up. But obviously, if you buy a property that has a direct water view, it's a little hard to build anything on the water to block the view. So that's why those views always come at a premium, because that's a long-standing view and people really like to have those water views. Properties with limited parking options. Now, this is one thing that you really have to pay attention to when you're looking at the property. I mean, obviously, if you're buying in South Beach and you're buying in one of those smaller buildings, street parking is the only parking that's available. So you don't really have a parking space. But that's the lifestyle in that area. If you're buying in an HOA community where you're buying a single family home, What does the parking look like? Do you have enough parking spaces for all of your family members? Is there a garage? Can your car fit in the garage? Sometimes people will say 1-car garage or 2-car garage, but it really might not fit the size of the cars that we have today. So always be sure to measure that and make sure that you know what is the parking situation there. It's just that areas with limited parking options can create an issue with reselling the property and also the perceived value in the property. So always be really careful with properties that have limited parking options, just because if you need to sell the property down the road, it might be a little bit harder to sell than a property that has a lot of options for parking. A home where you cannot inspect it. Now, I would say this is not always usual, but sometimes you will see in some bidding wars that they will say, okay, everyone needs to waive inspections. That's not something that I would be willing to advise our buyers to do, because I think you really need to take your time to perform a due diligence on the property. I mean, you don't need like a whole month to inspect the property. It doesn't take that long. But you definitely need some time to be able to get vendors out to the property. And then if there are any issues found during the inspection, you need to be able to have the next level of the vendors, maybe the roofer go out or the electrician to go out to give second and maybe third opinions. So anytime you feel a little bit of pressure with not allowing you to do your due diligence and at least have an inspection, that's a house that I would skip, because even in small condominiums, there's issues in those properties. So you always want to be able to inspect the property. Historic homes. Now, while historic homes are very charming, there are often limitations to what you can do when it comes to renovations. And in fact, over the years, I've seen many historic properties that were bought and renovations started and plans were made. And then I think people got in a little bit too deep and then they went back on the market to resell again. So I think unless you are an expert in buying historic homes and renovating historic homes, and you know what that area requires, what that board requires for those types of renovations, you may face a lot of limitations and complexities, and you may not be able to make that property as you would like to make it. This is a really good one that a lot of people probably don't think about, especially if you're not in our area and you're not from here. And that is, if you're buying in a condominium building, I would not recommend buying in a condominium building that does not have a pool. And I know that's going to sound crazy. Again, if you're buying on South Beach, that's very different because you have the ocean. But if you are buying in any other building around the city, I would definitely recommend that you buy in a building that has a pool. I think most people expect condominium buildings here to have pools. And if they don't, you're only going to appeal to a certain number of buyers if you have to resell that property down the road. And I think most people enjoy the use of pools here because many of our pools can be used all year long. And I just think buying in a building without a pool could be a big mistake, because you might really want to use the pool, and if you have friends over or family or even kids, they, get a lot of use out of the pool. So be really careful buying in a condominium building that does not have a pool. Homes with really low ceilings. I think in today's market, people expect homes to have a little bit higher ceilings and feel a little bit airy and bright. So I would be really careful about buying a house that has an unusually low ceiling, even if those ceilings kind of drop a little bit lower in the bedrooms, unless you intend to somehow make the ceiling a little bit higher. Maybe it's a drop ceiling and you can remove all of the materials and make it a little bit higher. But I would be really careful about buying a home that has a really low ceiling, and especially those homes that have those drop ceilings. Just sometimes they feel really way too low, and they just don't have a correct flow because the ceilings are way too low. So just double check always those lower ceilings and make sure that's something you can live with day in and day out. Buying a home is a huge investment, and it's really important to do your best to make sure you make the best decision when you're going down the road of this process. There are always a lot of properties that come up on our radar as properties that may be issues, and that's why we always like to carefully advise our buyers so that they know what they're getting into so that they don't have an issue down the road. Also, things can come up and you may need to resell a property. So we just think it's important that you pay attention to what you're buying. So if you have to resell it, you don't have an issue reselling it during that time. All right, my name is Jamey Prezzi. This is my husband, Ognjen Prezzi. I hope you found this helpful. We're always here to be a resource for you, and we will see you soon.